In tonight's headlines, a climate summit in Dubai ends with an accord to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Dozens of agreements are signed as Xi Jinping wraps up his visit to Vietnam. And the Chinese university dismisses Vice President Eric Ng.
After several days of hard negotiations, representatives of about 200 countries agreed to begin reducing the use of fossil fuels. The accord was reached in Dubai at the climate conference called COP28. Many countries, especially island nations, wanted stronger action, included phasing out the use of oil, gas, and coal. But the host country hailed the agreement.
It is a plan that is led by the science. It is a balanced plan that tackles emissions, bridges the gap on adaptation, reimagines global finance, and delivers on loss and damage. It is an enhanced, balanced, but make no mistake, historic package to accelerate climate action. It is the UAE consensus.
Israel is becoming increasingly isolated diplomatically amid the growing revulsion over its relentless bombing of Gaza in retaliation for a Hamas assault 2 months ago. Over 18,000 Palestinians have been killed, another 50,000 wounded, and many thousands more missing as overstretched hospitals with meager resources struggle to cope with a never-ending stream of injured Palestinian civilians, many of them children. The mounting casualties and the specter of starvation among Palestinians prompted U.S. President Joe Biden to warn Israel that it is losing international support because of its indiscriminate bombing of civilians. In the United Nations, 153 members of the General Assembly demanded an immediate ceasefire. The United States and Israel were among the 10 countries that rejected the call.
Right now, what we are seeing is an onslaught on civilians, the breakdown of humanitarian systems, and profound disrespect for both international law and international humanitarian law. Even war has rules. It is incumbent upon us, as the United Nations, to bring an immediate end to the suffering of innocent civilians.
On the last day of his state visit to Vietnam, President Xi Jinping laid a wreath to honor the country's revolutionary leader, Ho Chi Minh, in the capital Hanoi. In a meeting in the capital Hanoi with Wong Din Hue, chairman of the National Assembly, Xi said they have sent a positive signal to the outside world that China and Vietnam are committed to unity, friendship, and joint development. He added that the two socialist states have the vision of a shared future with strategic significance. A total of 36 agreements on cooperation were signed during Xi's visit.
The Chinese university has dismissed Vice President Eric Ng. Ng, who was also the university secretary, was accused of taking sides by going online to oppose a bid by 3 lawmakers to introduce changes to the institution's governing body.
Having regards to the concern on the behavior and actions of the university secretary, Mr. Eric Ng, in relation to matters pertinent to the work of the Council in the past months, the Council no longer has confidence in Mr. Ng's ability or willingness to support the work of the Council in a way that is expected of a senior officer.
University Professor Alan Chan will take up the duty of Vice President, while Amelia Wong from the school's Audit Committee will act as the institution's secretary.
Three men have been arrested in connection with a robbery yesterday when 24 watches worth over $39 million were seized from a store in Tsim Sha Tsui. Assistant District Commander Cheng Chi-yan said one suspect pretended to be a customer of Alva Watch and Jewelry on Granville Road, while the other two allegedly took part in planning the robbery. A search is underway for other members of the gang and the getaway vehicle. Smartphones and clothes the robbers wore were seized during the investigation.
More than 90% of students who are emotionally distressed do not seek help from adults, according to research by the Hong Kong Christian Service. During in-depth chats with 150 students last month, the group found that 70% of them blamed academic stress as the main source of their problems. Family and relationship issues were the next biggest factors. Lee Kin-man, principal of Ng Siu Mui Secondary School, said most distressed students feel ashamed or embarrassed to seek help from teachers and social workers because they fear that their peers might ridicule them. Studies have also shown that the number of students requiring mental health services after COVID has risen by 10%. The Christian group suggested that the government find ways to enable teachers and students to bond and build up trust. Schools should also learn how to identify students in need of help and teach others not to discriminate peers who have mental issues. Janice Yu, Cable News.
Five former Polytechnic University students have been sentenced to jail for up to 38 months for conspiring to riot. Lam Chi-cheng, Kang Cho-yuk, Kang Siu-hei, Chen Yun-yi, and Chen Chek-chiu pleaded guilty earlier. They had spray-painted surveillance cameras during the siege of their university 4 years ago. Handing down judgment, Deputy District Court Judge Colin Wong said the riot was planned and the level of violence was high. Many protesters had used petrol bombs, as well as bows and arrows to destroy cameras. Hong Kong javelin record holder Lam was given the shortest term of 35 months because he pleaded guilty before the others, who were jailed for between 36 and 38 months. Also at the district court, Judge Frankie Yu sent 3 men to jail for an arson attack, which destroyed a police truck at the Police Sports and Recreation Club in Prince Edward in 2020. Choi Kwan-ho, Ma Fu-shan, and Lo Hong-shen had been found guilty earlier. Yu said even though the trio were aiming to damage property, their act could threaten others. He added that the incident occurred when tensions in society were high and the action was planned as the defendants brought along patrol bombs. But he showed leniency because no one had been injured and the defendants showed remorse. Choi and Ma were put behind bars for 4 years each, while Lo was sent to a training center. Janice Lo, Cable News. Chief Executive John Lee, executive councillors and lawmakers have paid tribute to the more than 300,000 people killed in the Nanjing Massacre 86 years ago. Former leaders Carrie Lam and Donald Tsang were among those present for the ceremony at government headquarters this morning. Following 2 minutes of silence, Lee laid wreath and signed a memorial book. In Nanjing itself, around 8,000 people attended a ceremony to honor the victims of Japanese aggression in the 1930s. Sirens sounded while mourners at the Memorial Hall of Victims observed a minute of silence. The national flag was lowered to half-mast as a mark of respect.
The Hong Kong stock market fell today on disappointment at the absence of a major plan to stimulate the economy following a mainland policy meeting. The Hang Seng Index gave up 0.9%, close to its lowest level in 14 months. The tech index retreated, with JD.com losing 2.4% and Tencent dropping 1.4%. Mainland developers also lost ground. China Resources Land was down 3.2%.
Northern and central China are bracing for another cold front. Many areas are already in the grips of cold snaps, and temperatures are expected to be below freezing point through most of next week. Some train services were suspended and parts of major highways were shut due to heavy snow. All schools in Beijing were closed as the capital braced for more than 15 centimeters of snowfall. Cold and snowstorm alerts are in force, and people have been urged to stay indoors and work staggered and flexible hours. De-icing precautions are being taken.